Did you have any kind of premonition that you saying some of the things you said about Lizzo would get that much attention? Aries Spears, what's up with you, man? I appreciate you joining us today.
Oh, it's all love, brother. It's all love. What's good?
Man, we just chilling out. First of all, I got to start off this video the way I start off all my videos on Moxy Approved. What we talking about? What we talking about? Today, we got Aries Spears, man. What's up with you, brother? Your name been driving a lot of traffic these last few weeks, man. I must say that, man.
Yeah, you know, social media, that's what happens now.
Yeah, I think as comics, man, right or wrong, I think it's something that we definitely got to take advantage of, but we'll probably get into that later. I wanted to start off by asking you, what are your thoughts on PC, and how do you think how has PC changed the way that, you know, you craft your material or your sketches or whatever the case may be?
You know, I'm real old school, man. I'm from that era, you know, the 80s. And of course, you know, doing my homework comedically before that, as a student of the 70s and just the history of comedy. So, you know, I'm real old school in my belief system, creatively. You know, I do what I do, man. And you know, unfortunately, we live in this era now where things are so sensitive and, you know, everybody's easily offended. But I just try to stay true to who I am and to the art form of comedy and what good comedy is supposed to be. You know, for me, it's as simple as that.
Yeah, you said you old school, man. Yeah, I grew up watching you. You actually been around with like some of the greats, and one of my favorites. Have you had a chance to work with Patrice O'Neal before he passed?
No, man, I never got a chance to work with him. The highlight of my life was the time I, you know, was on Opie and Anthony, when I had that incident at the radio station in Florida, and we all spoke about it. So, you know, Patrice is, you know, was one of my favorites, still is, God rest his soul. But, you know, talk about a guy in terms of brutal honesty, witty, intelligent. He had the perfect combination between, you know, intelligence and straight raw uncut cocaine, you know. So he was one of the best, man.
Yeah, his legacy still moves on today. That's a good transition to where we want to go. Do you see PC ever taking a step back, or how do you see it as far as it, you know, the future of it?
You know, I'd like to think that eventually it will take a step back, because I think in comedy and in life, you know, people don't like to be told what they can and can't do, what they can and can't enjoy. You know, it's like, you know, alcohol in the prohibition era. You know, people want to drink. You know, people want to do what they got to do to feel good. And if alcohol is one of those vices, as unhealthy as it may be, you can't tell people, you know, what they can, you know, get into and what they can't. And you know, usually when a system or a society tries to tell you what you can and can't do, people rebel against that.
I hear you. I definitely hope that's the future. Now, you are out on the West Coast, am I right?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, kind of unrelated, but I definitely want to hear your opinion on this. What do you think about, I guess it's a trend lately that's going, well, it's not lately, but about P&B Rock and, you know, these other rappers that's been going to LA. And, you know, rest in peace to P&B Rock, man. It was kind of unfortunate to see the brother end like that. What do you think about, you know, that pattern of people flaunting what they got in LA and, you know, the gangsters out there going to snatch it?
You know, I mean, you know, for me, man, I you know, my knowledge of today's hip hop and who's who is extremely limited. I don't even know who that is, with all due respect. You know, I make no bones about the fact that I'm real old school. You know, I'm a 90s cat. My era was the 90s and the 2000s. And really, for me, my enjoyment of hip hop past that is very limited. So I don't even know who that is.
Oh, there's no problem with that. You're just a man that's truly in your art, man. I also want to say, you know, I'm not no type of person to be, you know, kissing nobody's ass, but I am also a student of the craft, and you definitely top 5 impressionists, in my opinion, all time. So I definitely want to shoot that too. Yeah, it's nothing not know who P&B Rock is. A lot of people don't know who he are. Are there any comics that's not here today that you think that will actually thrive in today's world, like past comics that might be gone? Because, you know, as we talking about the PC, how it's changing, you know, a lot of the older comics, they didn't really, you know, Bernie Mac, he didn't give a fuck about PC. Are there any of them that's gone that you think will actually have a better career today with social media than in the past?
I certainly think, you know, again, guys like Patrice, Bernie, them dudes whose funny was so at a certain level, I just don't think you can hold that back. I don't think that there's anything that can derail that. It's certainly if you especially have the ability to handle the criticism. And I think that a guy like Bernie and Patrice were well equipped mentally and comedically to deal with whatever backlash that they would ever get comedically. And that in and of itself is such a huge talent.
I see. So sorry, I got all my questions all mixed up. So let me ask you this. Let's take one more step back. I know you started comedy very young. What was it that got you, you know, every comic got their story as far as like, yo, this happened. I was like, man, I got to become a comic. What was that moment for you? Because you got in like, what, 15, 16? You started doing comedy?
14.
14. Okay, so what was that moment where you like, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I want to be in the future?
You know, I just always had a love for entertainment, man. Always had just a, you know, something in me early that just was, you know, my father was a big movie fanatic. So, you know, and my mother kind of too. So between the two of them and watching old black and white movies with Humphrey Bogart, James Cagney, you know, some of the comedians back then, Abbott and Costello, Step and Fetch It, Mantan Moreland, Moms Mabley. I just always had a love for the art of performing and making people laugh. So it's just something that's just was ingrained in me early.
All right, so taking it a step further, you know, comic to comic, I have to mention this. How do you feel about we already made an agreement not to talk about certain stuff. We're gonna stick to that. Well, how do you feel about the slander you've been getting from like you know, let's say Corey Holcomb?
I had Aries at my show one day. After all that begging and shit, I gave in. And it cost me thousands.
And Faison Love. If you would call it slander, how do you feel about that? How does that make you feel, like from comedian to comedian?
I mean, it is what it is. You know, you know, obviously I would rather it not be that, but you know, whatever's in a person's mind and heart and soul that motivates them to want to do what they do, you know, that's on them. You know, I could either choose to respond to it or not respond to it. And in some cases, I felt the need to respond, but past that, I'm not losing any sleep over it.
I think he was 14 years old, and they flew him out to Hollywood. These is Hollywood motherfuckers thinking he was going to be the next Eddie Murphy, and womp, womp. He was so angry. I mean, I was going to slap the shit out of him one time. It was like, this dumb motherfucker, you know, the Comedy Store, so many motherfuckers was going to whoop his ass.
Or would you say that it's personal? Or would you say it's just entertainment? Because, you know, sometimes we in the world today that people say stuff sometimes just to get the attention on them. You know what I mean? Would you say it's some real animosity there? Or would you say it's probably more just for entertainment, in your opinion?
Did it feel like entertainment? I mean, you know, you can sniff and smell and see vitriol. So, you know, vitriol comes with a tone. So it's like, you know, in comedy, as they say, you know, are you being laughed at or laughed with? And based on the tone, I think it's pretty easy to see what it is.
Do you think this is anything that could be squashed, like as far as on your side, or are you past it, or with you is this something that you just rather stay away from?
You know, like I said, I'm not gonna put too much energy in it.
Gotcha.
I'm not the kind of person that likes to just sit back and have rocks thrown at them without throwing some back. But at the same time, I don't want to harp on it too long because it's just not worth it.
All right. Is there anybody that you would say entertainment that you pissed off that you like might have regret for pissing them off?
I mean, you know, listen, we all do things that, you know, at some point that we have some regret for. So, you know, but again, I can't waste time worrying about the past. I just got to figure out how to learn from it and keep it moving.
I agree with that. You know, everybody has maybe had things misinterpreted or whatever the case and piss somebody off. It ain't really nothing you can do about that. I definitely agree about that. So hold on. One of my favorite skits of yours that went viral, it was very funny, man, was that new Cosby show.
Oye, por ahí viene Bill Cosby, óyele.
Man, how did you come up with that skit? Was it just something that, you know, because you've been doing the Cosby impersonation for a while. So was it just taking that a step further? That's actually one of my favorites of yours, was the Bill Cosby one.
You know, it's like in sports, man. You just take what the defense gives you. You know, so, you know, Cosby put himself out there and, you know, I don't know what comedian didn't jump on it because it's a comic. That's kind of part of your gig. So, you know, I just took what the defense gave me.
I feel on that. Let me see. Now, would you say that, you know, talking to the people that's outside of Hollywood looking in, would you say that the Hollywood form of politics, would you say that stuff is real, or would you say a lot of that stuff is made up?
I mean, I think any game where, you know, stakes is high in terms of power and money and fame, there's always going to be politics. I don't know too much in life that isn't political at some level.
All right. So would you say the casting couch stuff is real? You know, this kind of stuff we talk about on my channel.
I mean, you know, again, Harvey Weinstein, that happened. So that kind of answers that question.
Have you been to any of those parties?
No, man, I don't, you know, that's not my lane. I don't know what that is.
All right. I got you. So last week, it's an older sketch. You know, for whatever reason, a lot of stuff that you've done in the past, all of a sudden just been sprouting out. We'll get to that later. But one of the sketches that you were in from the past when I guess it reemerged and went viral again. It's the one where you getting rubbed with baby oil.
Only got one man, and this be my man. When I say my man, he really my man. I rep so hard from the north to the south. I remember one time I was
and you know, kissing the guy. Can you explain to the folks watching, you know, any kind of motivation behind that as far as comedy and the sketch and doing stuff like that? A lot of people were talking about that this last week.
Yeah, I'm gonna let them keep talking. Watch my Showtime special, Hollywood Look, I'm Smiling. It's contextual. Look at the special and you'll get your answers.
I like that. I like that. That is what it is. So what would you personally say your favorite sketches that you've done or be involved in personally for you? What would you say your favorite is?
You know, I enjoyed a lot of my time on Mad TV working with Will Sasso, Deborah Wilson, Mo Collins, because they were all so brave comedically and took chances. I think we all were. So getting a chance to work with an ensemble is very different from doing stand-up, which, you know, of course, is a solo sport. But when you get a chance to do sketch, you know, you're working off of other comedic sensibilities. And when people are fearless and they're comedically sharp and have the ability to go there, it's kind of cool because they help make you better.
Oh, I see. Well, how do you come up with the ideas? Give these people just a small little glimpse of how do you come up with these ideas for these sketches? I mean, comedians have different ways of coming up with ideas and stuff like that. Are you the type that you do a lot of back and forth with other people, or is it just sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a collaborative effort. Of course, the show has a team of writers. So between them and the fact that they would allow you to collaborate with them and bounce ideas off of them, it really, like the saying goes, steel sharpens steel. So, it's one thing to put it on paper comedically, but you still need the talent to make it pop, and vice versa. You can have all the talent in the world, but if the writing isn't good, then, it falls flat. So when there's the perfect unison between writing and ability, the more the merrier.
I got you. So now I wanted to talk about, did you think before you said something about Lizzo, like, I don't know, I have never went viral like you have. Did you have any kind of premonition that you saying some of the things you said about Lizzo would get that much attention?
No, not really. If everybody knew the formula to going viral, everybody would go viral. And it wasn't like, that was my intent. Listen, I'm a comedian, and I hold true to this badge called comedy and uphold this oath called humor. I'm not a scholar and I'm not a politician. So comedically, if I'm being spoken to or we're engaging in conversation and I sense a lob being thrown at me, I'm gonna dunk it, because I think comedy first and always. And again, how people perceive it, how they want to run with it, that's out of my hands.
Has anything changed with how you feel about Lizzo and some of the stuff you have said?
I said what I said, and some of the real message was lost in translation. So, listen, some of us play chess and some of us play checkers. And sometimes, things go over people's heads or they hear what they want to hear. And instead of dealing in logic, rationale, and sense, people deal in emotion and anger.
That's a fact. Well, if you can go back, would you change up some of the things you said about Lizzo? Would you, if you can go back to that Vlad interview with you talking to Lizzo, would you change anything up that you said?
Probably not.
I feel you on that. I'm not gonna lie, you're not the first person to say that about Lizzo. Are you familiar with Kevin Samuels?
Yeah.
How do you feel about the late Kevin Samuels?
Hard pill for some people to swallow. Truth is bitter. It's not sweet. So, he spoke his truth and he stood on it. And however you may or may not feel about him, it's commendable. I think anytime people stand their ground, it's commendable.
All right, that's what's up. So, what was that? So, I guess this is the last question I want to ask you about Lizzo. Do you think the things that you said about Lizzo has anything to do with, you going viral every other day, people pulling up stuff from your past and stuff like that? Because, a lot of this stuff has been online for a while and it's just being rehashed this week. Do you see any connection there in your opinion?
I think that's, listen, people connect the dots wherever they can, especially when the iron's hot. So, it is what it is, I don't know what else to say about it, but the timing is peculiar, but it is what it is.
That's what's up. How do you feel about who did you have? I'm gonna mix up these questions. Who did you have in these last elections? Because I like talking to someone such as yourself that's very candid. I mean, we in a world today where you've been through the fire, you still willing to speak your mind. That's very admirable. So it's some stuff I would like to ask you, just knowing that you're that kind of person. How did you feel about, like, who did you have in this last election between Trump and Biden?
Well, I mean, as far as of course, everybody, you let Black folks tell it, and given some of the history, Biden was a bad choice too, but I guess it was the lesser of two evils. Trump just had to go. So not that Biden has ever sung black people's praises, but Trump just had to go, so even though Biden has had somewhat of a successful little run here, at the end of the day, what politician has ever truly been for black folks? So, I can't see it any other way, but Trump just had to go, man. But I'm not really invested that much in Biden. Anyway, I mean, I'm not a big political guy to begin with, but obviously because of Obama and his 8 years and him being our first black president, how as a black person in America, given the history, do you not invest in politics at that point? And of course, Trump for 4 years was such a sideshow and a cartoon. He was perfect for, comedic fodder. So the last 12 years prior to Biden was just must-see TV. After that, I kind of tuned out.
Oh, that's what's up. So if we happen to have the same lineup again for this next election, things change. It's another 2 years from now. But if it was Biden, Trump again next week in an election, who would you take?
Again, I can't get behind Trump based on what he stands for and given his history. I just can't float with Trump. So I don't know. I guess that's a clear-cut choice.
All right. I was watching, some of the stuff you said on your podcast, just to do a little bit of research myself. And there was one clip where you kind of alluded to, you possibly being blackballed. Do you think that that's the truth? You didn't say that, you implied it.
This game is funny, man. I don't want to dive into that too much. I mean, it is what it is. But the one thing about this game called show business is you're always one thing away from things being turned around. There's guys that haven't been blackballed per se, who went from working heavily and being constantly seen to almost missing. So who knows why? I mean, this is just a funny, fickle business. So just because you up today don't mean you won't be down tomorrow. And just because you down today don't mean you won't be up tomorrow. So you just got to roll with the punches.
I'm glad you brought that up. Because I don't know, man, this whole cancel culture, it is very fickle and it's like changing. Like, what would you say will be the difference between all right, you familiar with Shane Gillis?
Not really.
White comedian. Yeah, he got, he was on Saturday Night Live and he never got to be on Saturday Night Live because he said something years back on the podcast and got canceled, but now the guy is big online. All right, so let me reshape this a different way for you. What's the difference between someone like Dave Chapelle, who, I want to say he's been allowed to kind of step out of the box, at least for Netflix, he's been allowed. What would you say is the difference between him and other comics who I would say may not be able to get away with saying that kind of stuff?
I mean, when you produce big results, you got a lot more room to navigate. And I mean, Chappelle's show was so huge. I think it's like the #1 TV DVD of all time. I mean, when you put up those kind of numbers, you get a lot of latitude. So, between that and the Netflix specials, he's positioned himself to be the greatest comedian of this generation. So when you have that kind of pull and you produce those kind of numbers and you have that kind of success, that comes with advantages.
Do you think that he has possibly burned a role behind him? Like, do you see someone not on that level, maybe in the next decade, getting on that level, being able to do that again? Or do you think Dave might be one of the last?
No, I think you're talking to him.
All right, that's pretty good. that's pretty good. So, all right, take that into, at the end of the day, how do you want to be remembered?
I just want to be able to say that, I did solid work, respectable work, as subjective as that may be for some people, just to be thought of in the same atmosphere as some of the biggest names in comedy. And I think that to some degree, I've already accomplished that. how much further that can go depends on myself and time. So who knows how the final chapter is written? The good thing is, as long as I'm still breathing, I can be the author of my own book. So we'll see.
That's a fact. All right. So how many impressions do you think that you have? Like if someone like, yeah, I know that's probably a hard question for yourself, but like if someone was like, if off the top of your head, how many would you say you can do?
Probably just over 20 to 25.
Damn. I gotta ask you, as a comic, that's one of the parts that I lack in. It's only like I could do Hulk Hogan a little bit. It's only a few people that I could do an impersonation of. How do you do it? Like, do you study them a certain type of ways, a certain type of dictation you have to do to doing a good impersonation of someone else?
You know, it's I always liken it to music. You know, it's like people that have an ear for tone, inflection, rhythm, you know, the ability to hit riffs and licks. You know, to me, it's a thing in the ear that you hear, and plus, you know, it's just a God-given vocal thing. And if between what you hear and what you can do vocally are in tune with one another, it's like being able to be a good singer. You just, you know, music is something that you feel, and you have a gift for, you know, those subtleties and those ups and downs and those notes.
That's what's up. So you say it's more of a natural thing, as long as I got you.
Yeah. I mean, you know, yeah.
I got you. Some more comic questions. What would you say? Every comic has the worst time that they have bombed. What would you say? Well, actually, before we get to that, is there any impersonation that you ever done that really pissed somebody off that you didn't think it would piss them off, and they happened to get a whiff of your impersonation of them, and they just took it personal or got mad?
I wouldn't say that he got mad, but you know, LL Cool J, he kind of takes himself very serious. So, you know, they say imitation is the greatest form of flattery, and most people, that pretty much everybody that I've ever done in front of them were flattered to a large degree. So, but you know, LL kind of takes himself serious, you know. So I don't know if he felt he was being laughed with or laughed at.
So he approached you?
No. I was at same place, same time. We was around the same surroundings, and you know, I kind of broke it out in front of him, and you know, I don't know that he dug it.
I mean, did he just walk away? I mean, was he?
But you could tell, you know, facial expressions and, you know, the vibe and the energy he gave off. He just didn't seem like he was a fan.
All right, now was there anyone that totally loved it? That's just like, yo, man, like, because I look at it as an honor, me personally.
Yeah.
Do you have someone that was just like, hey, I love how you do an impersonation of me, man?
Yeah, Shaq's always a lot of fun. You know, he's the opposite of taking himself serious. He's a big, you know, 7-foot comedian himself. So, you know, he really digs it, and he lets you know it. So Shaq's always been appreciative.
Yeah, I definitely can see that. So what would you say was, you know, all comics, we have this story. What would you say what's your worst bombing experience? One you would like to forget?
No, I don't think you want to forget it, because you learn from it. You know, Madison Square Garden, right after the blow up of Def Jam, you know, I was on tour with Bill Bellamy, Bernie Mac, Adele Givens. We did a show at the Garden, Reggie McFadden, Eddie Griffin, a big show. And I just, you know, I tanked, you know, so to be in front of your hometown, 5,000 plus, it was a lonely day. But the irony and the great part about it was, flash forward to the last time I performed there and did a concert with other guys, and Tracy Morgan was the big headliner. I crushed it. So it came full circle.
You got your revenge. I like that. You got your revenge. So have you ever, I'm trying to relate these two. Now, have you ever put something out without having to say, if you don't removing what we were not supposed, what we're not going to talk about, have you ever put something up online that bombed, that you felt should have got more attention or more positive, more laughter than what it got? Like dropping a dud.
You know, comedy is subjective. So, you know, we all our intention is to always hit the home run. But, you know, Michael Jordan didn't win every game, but he had 6 championships. So as long as your positives outweigh your negatives, the goal is to always be successful.
Okay. Now this is another one I definitely got to ask you, man. This one on a personal one, I got to ask you, have you ever had someone just flat out take one of your jokes?
Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, we in the comedy business. So I don't know if you're really good at what you do unless somebody does.
All right. Well, how do you deal with it? You know, I agree with what you're saying. How, you know, I've had situations like that I'm not going to get into because this is about you. But, you know, seeing something that, you know, as a comedian, you'll come up with an idea and sometimes you have to spend time cultivating that idea. And I done had jokes. It took me 3 to 6 months to really finish just for someone to come swipe it. I mean, how do you deal with that? Because it's like all the work you may have put into that one joke gone in an instant, especially if they tell it on TV. How do you deal with it? You just try to...
I mean, well, you know, nobody likes to have what they created taken from them and somebody else get the credit. But, you know, guys that do that are limited to begin with. So there's only so much they can, you know, do. You know, they may win the battle, but if you're the creator and the originator of great material, you know, you're going to win the war. So, you know, as much as it sucks, you know, they can't stop where it comes from. As long as you did it once, you can do it 5 times, 10 times, 20 times. They may only be able to do it once or twice because they were limited to begin with.
So, you know, talking to the younger comics out there, you know, that might have went through this, you saying it's just all about the long term, about the war, and just try to keep pushing forward.
Yeah, I mean, longevity is important. Those that have the ability can sustain themselves. Those that don't, you see, they come and go.
Right. All right. Did you know David Arnold?
I did. Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah, he passed away, man. Have you ever had a chance to work with him, or how do you feel about the brother?
No, I never had the chance to work with him, but he was a really good dude, man. Matter of fact, I want to say less than a month ago, he lives around the area I live at, and I ran into him at the grocery store. So to hear that news just really kind of broke my heart, man, because he's such a good dude. He was such a good dude. And I know he was a big family man, loved his daughters and his wife. And he did a lot of things where he posted about his family and his wife. And, you know, to think that somebody, you know, his significant other lost a partner and a husband, and daughters lost their father. It was just really sad.
That's what's up. See, I was in the grocery store together, man. That was probably a good moment that people missed, that they didn't even know. It was these two nice comics in the grocery store having a conversation. But definitely rest in peace, David Arnold. I also knew him. He was a great guy. Let me see. What else we got? Sorry, I didn't have these questions. Should have had them all back to back to back. Who's your top 5 comedy all time? Dead, alive, no matter.
Has to be Eddie Murphy, Patrice O'Neal, Dave Chapelle, Tommy Davidson, and Bill Burr.
Oh, okay. Very similar to mine. All right, what's your opinion on this new type comedy that's been, you know, I'll say one name, but it's more than one name, but this new type comedy that's not really jokes, it's more like, how can I say this? Like they're giving speeches, like Hannah Gadsby will be one where they don't really worry about the laughs per minute. There's a lot of specials I've been seeing that lately. How do you feel about, you know, this new comedy style where they don't really worry about laughs per minute, that they really just giving speeches and TED Talks?
I mean, well, you know, you just said it in the word style. You know, again, you have to always remember comedy is subjective. So what might work for most people or what might not work for most people, it's working for somebody. And if the objective is to get laughs and that's what they're getting, whatever the pace, well, then the job is done. You know, when you talk about a certain style, you look at a guy like Franklin Ajay back in the day, or, you know, you look at guys like Mitch Hedberg or Dimitri Martin or Charles Cozart. I forget my man's name, who really had, they all had that similar style in terms of deadpan delivery. You know, it might not be for me, but obviously, again, there are people that are responding. So if the goal in comedy is to get a laugh, whatever your style, that's your style. People may try to knock Carrot Top for what he does, or a Jeff Dunham for puppets, and say that's not real comedy, or prop comedy is the, however you want to describe it. But again, if the goal is to get laughs, mission accomplished.
Yeah, those guys made a lot of money too. You know, whether somebody want to judge them a lot, them guys have made a lot of money. So you saying for the younger comics coming up that, you know, your style doesn't always have to be based on the laughs per minute?
No, I mean, you know, everybody has their own flow and their own rhythm. You know, one of the things I love about Gerard Carmichael, and I've compared him and Dave to both great jazz artists, you know, because they have a very sophisticated approach to comedy, and they're very smooth and you know, very like jazz music. It's a smooth art form. It's a laid back art form. It's a sophisticated, mature art form. And both Dave and Gerard deliver it as such. So it's almost like listening to Miles Davis and Thelonious Monk. You know, it's just a very smooth way. I you know, again, I look at Gerard Carmichael. I didn't necessarily agree with his take on Dave, given where it was coming from in the climate. But comedically, I think he's a smooth cat, man.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that it's kind of unfortunate that yeah, it's been some shots been taken. I haven't really heard anything publicly that Dave has said about Gerard. Maybe, you know, some off the record type stuff I've heard, but yeah, that was kind of odd to see that come out. Let me ask you this, because I've been in different fields, but comedy, I'll be doing comedy for the rest of my life, stand up. I love it. It's one thing that I noticed. I've never seen more jealousy than I've seen in just animosity toward each other, especially amongst Black comics. Do you have an opinion on why it's like that, or where it starts?
You know, this is just this industry is a very, if it works for you, it's a very lucrative industry in terms of fame and money and the advantages that come with all that. So anytime you got a business like this where, you know, people can become successful and rich for the rest of their life, and, you know, again, all the advantages that come with fame, you're gonna have a mosh pit. You know, I think it's the nature of human beings to kind of, you know, kill or be killed. So, you know, and again, given what all is to be gained, it is what it is, man. It's just going to be competitive by nature. Everybody's trying to survive. Everybody's trying to get to the top. So, you know, it's a dog-eat-dog game, you know?
Well, would you say it's the same amongst white comedians, or even comparable?
Yeah, I mean, the only difference is that we don't have the same opportunities in abundance that they have. So it might add even more fuel to our fire. But again, anytime you're dealing with this kind of wealth, this kind of opportunity, this kind of power and influence, no matter what color you are, it's going to be a cutthroat game.
So would you say that you believe in the one man on the top of the hill, that they only got a certain amount of spots for us in Hollywood as far as, you know, Black comics?
I mean, that's not as true as it once used to be. But again, in terms of abundance, we just don't have the same opportunities and looks that they have. You know, I used to say that, you know, and kind of still feel this way, that Hollywood is, you know, white folks' FUBU, for us, by us. You know, the game that we're allowed to operate in. because obviously, you know, we can be profitable, and black dollars are huge at the box office. So there's money to be made off of us and with us. But unfortunately, as far as the power structure goes, that's not dealt on the same level. And then, you know, I think brothers like Tyler Perry and Ava, and sisters like Ava DuVernay, and you know, I forget my man's name, but the creator of Blackish, I think they're changing that. But it'd be nice to one day get to a point where it's truly on the same level.
All right, so I was going to ask you, what do you think us as a community could do to get it there? But you sort of answered. Is there something that you think you can bring to this table to get us there?
I think it has to be a collective. You know, a collective within. There's enough power players and influential people where if we could come together and do it right, I don't see why it shouldn't have happened a long time ago. You know, Steven Spielberg, David Geffen, Katzenberg, they formed DreamWorks. And that was, I want to say, I don't know the exact date, but that was a while ago. I want to say decades ago. We should have been done that. Why we haven't, I think, is a testament to, you know, the crabs in the barrel mentality.
So, well, you seem like a guy that's definitely dedicated to the craft. You know, of course, I'm not on the level that you have made it to as far as with comedy, but I do have some understanding about art. For the people that's not in this field, or, you know, that is growing up in this PC era, you seem to be someone for your craft that's willing to go where you feel it needs to go. Basically, what I want to say, is there anything, do you have a certain type of line that you're like, you know what, I'm not going to cross this line, even if it's funny, I'm not going to cross this line. Do you have any of those kind of lines?
You know, three of the best comics ever, Dave Chapelle, Patrice O'Neal, and George Carlin, you know, have great quotes in regards to comedy. You know, Dave Chapelle said, you don't know where the line is until you cross it. George Carlin said, wherever you think the line is in comedy, you should intentionally cross it. And then Patrice O'Neal said, you know, good comedy shouldn't make everybody laugh. 50% of the audience should be laughing and the other half horrified. So, you know, that's coming from three greats. So, you know, that's comedy, man.
That's definitely comedy. Some people don't get that. And it just feels like the further we get along, you know, the more this PC stuff. It's looking like they about to, I don't know, sound like they was about to cancel SNL. I was reading that the other day. I think it's just like their 50th season, and that 48. Yeah, so I read in New York Post that it's a big possibility that very soon it's going to get canceled. If SNL gets canceled, where do you see the future of sketch comedy going? Like,
there'll be something else that comes along, you know. But Saturday Night Live is such an institution. I mean, it's been around since the 70s. And you know, that rumor has been floating around many times before. So that's one of those things that until it happens, it's hard to believe it.
I got you. Do you think we could ever have a Mad TV or a Living Color in today's society? Like, even if it's on YouTube?
You know, I'd like to think so. But like anything else, you know, things happen in waves. And I just really think that at the end of the day, this cancer culture and this PC culture is a wave. It's a long wave, but I think it's a wave. I mean, you know, the most dangerous thing, or I should say the most beautiful thing about technology, has also become the most dangerous thing. Yes, there are a lot of advantages to having a phone in your hand, in your pocket, that can do almost everything. But at the same time, it's dangerous too, because everybody shouldn't have a platform. Everybody shouldn't be able to speak and voice their opinion, because, you know, people get irresponsible. You know, it's like giving your drunk uncle at the Thanksgiving family dinner keys to the gun cabinet. You know, alcohol and stupidity don't mix. So for some people, that phone is the guns is the keys to the gun cabinet.
So, all right, that's good. Would you say that online has saturated comedy and affected stand-up? Social media?
Yeah, I don't know that it affected stand-up because again, stand-up is such a respected, incredibly hard art form that has been around since, you know, the 20s. So I think it's solidified its position. But to a degree, you know, listen, there are things you see online where the average dude could make you laugh for a second. But are you able to sustain that? Is that enough to build a career? Do you have stability in terms of humor? And, you know, as funny as some people may be from social media, flashes in the pans, that's exactly what they are. Because, you know, they don't have what it takes to really have it sustain itself. So you eventually get weeded out.
So do you feel like in the next 10 years, stand-up will still be as popular as it is now as far as a craft?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't. You know, new comics are born every day, and again, this has been around for so long that it's part of the American culture. It's a part of the American psyche, and you know, I should say, a worldly culture and a worldly psyche, because people tell jokes all over the world. So this machine ain't going nowhere.
I feel you. Well, have you ever had somebody charge you on stage or try to run up on stage while you was performing because they didn't like a joke of yours?
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know that you're doing comedy right unless somebody want to put hands on you. So yeah, you know, comedically, you know, they're button pushers, and if people are too sensitive and don't know the protocol when coming to a comedy club, shit happens.
Yeah, I had a joke. I was telling about 3 years now that a Black woman recently ran up on stage. It kind of surprised me. Do you think this type of behavior, do you think it was happening before the Will Smith and Chris Rock thing, or do you think the Will Smith, Chris Rock thing is going to push it further?
No, of course it's been happening. Chris Rock and Will Smith, they just made it famous. You know, that's all. They just made it famous, but it's been happening.
That's what's up, man. Well, before we get out of here, you know, some stuff that we can't talk about. We got some legal stuff going on. Outside of that, I want to ask you, is there anything you would like to say to your dedicated fans, like those that want to stick with you, you know, as far as like the last few weeks of news coming out about you? Is there any kind of message you would like to send, you know, your diehard fans?
Nah, they know who I am. They know what it is.
That's what's up. Man, I appreciate you, Aries Spears. You know, you showed up for me.
It's all love, brother. I wish you well on your comedy journey.
Oh, thank you, man. Y'all got it. That's Aries Spears. Y'all know how we like to end our videos over here at Moxy Approved, right? With that water. I see y'all here next time on Moxy. I see y'all here next time on Moxy Approved.
My man. Take care, brother.